Welcome to yours truly. My name is Tina.
And I'm Mohammed.
This is our podcast from us to you. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. This is our 6th episode, and we love having you here.
Yep, this is the show where nothing is off limits, where we try to have some fun and learn something new at the same time. So sit back, relax, grab a snack, and join us in our shenanigans.
How are you guys doing today? How did you guys like our last 2 episodes?
Let us know.
Please do. It definitely helps us if we get some feedback from y'all.
And I'm insecure, so please be nice.
Alright, so today we have, I think, a pretty interesting audio pod for y'all today.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than what we've done recently. Kind of more one of the kind of podcasts we want to do in the future, which is something that's a little bit, possibly controversial, but we're going to start off a little bit easier. And today's topic is going to be very broad. It's about employment.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and if you've been looking at the news or social media recently, you'll see all kinds of things about how unemployment is still, rather high, even though the statistics are not like staggering like they used to be. A lot of people have quit on finding work, and so you'll see all kinds of industries, especially like the food industry, are having a hard time rehiring people because people don't want to work for them anymore. So we decided to make a little podcast about it and talk about what we think.
And what we've learned about employment and our personal thoughts about employment and just pretty much overall what we would like to see change, right?
Yeah, and I think for us to talk about this, we should establish what we've done and what we are doing now.
Exactly.
So Tina, you gotta go first.
Is it because I have the shortest resume?
Yeah, you go ahead.
All right. So I always like to start off with, I don't really count this one, but I technically was working, so I will count it. Pretty much I was working for my mom. She's a nail tech, and I pretty much helped her with the front desk work and customer service and opening up her whole nail shop. So I have experience with business, if you could say. But currently I work at a plasma donation center. I legally can't say where.
Ooh, secretive.
But throughout COVID, I was considered a essential worker, so I was working all throughout COVID and up till now. But that's as far as my resume goes, and hopefully more in the future. Fingers crossed. But yeah, how about you, Mohammed?
Nice. Currently, I am a business owner, a new business owner. You can check me out at BXG Media. BXG_media on Instagram. Anyways, previously, I've done a lot. I mean, I've pretty much worked for money since I was 12 years old. First off, working for my uncle, he owns a lot of rental properties, and so I would get paid to help out with landscaping and interior stuff like painting and little house remodeling projects, really easy ones. That was more for just me to learn about working and about the house and that kind of stuff. My first legal job was when I was 15 at Which Superior Sandwiches, which are the best sandwiches. Too bad they're shutting down all over.
Honestly, they really are. I did not believe him, but they were really good.
They are so smack.
They're so good.
And then I moved on to be a server at Outback Steakhouse. Was there for 2.5 years. And actually, I did pretty much everything there. I started off as a host, went on to takeout, then became a takeout manager, then became a server, worked in the bar area, and eventually, before I left, they asked me to be a key, which is just a key holder, a little, miniature manager that just has all the codes if you want to put discounts on your orders and that kind of stuff. And then I went on to work at Toyota. I was a salesman there. And then I eventually became the used car manager's assistant. Let's not get that mixed up. I was not the assistant used car manager. Don't hype me up like that. Then I went to have a very short stint at UPS. UPS. And even shorter stint at Target.
Target.
And yeah. Since then, I've been either unemployed or just, like I said recently, a new business owner.
So, what have you learned from all of your previous employments that have kind of just made you change in the way that you think? Actually, let's talk about what you think about employment and just overall, so what do you think about employment now and what have you learned?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of good to it. Like, I learned a lot and eventually grew as a person because of everything I've done. But to stay on track of what, we're trying to get at during this podcast, what I've learned is that everyone is very dispensable, for one. I mean, you learn this the hard way, and it's kind of heartbreaking sometimes if you're really invested in this company, or you feel like you're treated properly, or you feel like they really care about you. And eventually you learn the hard way that, like, you can be replaced in a matter of seconds, even if, you work your ass off and you show up on time every day and you're one of the top earners or workers or whatever the case is.
Or even sometimes if you work so hard and you put in so much work that you're overworked, so you eventually leave because you're dealing with so much and you aren't appreciated enough.
Definitely. For example, with my time at Toyota, as a salesman, I was one of the top salesmen in a very short time at 19 years old. And, as I decided to move on to do other things, they literally begged me to stay for my last 2 weeks that I gave them. They even had a whole meeting with, the rest of the salespeople trying to convince me to stay. I mean, it was crazy that the lengths they went to try to keep me, which of course made me feel really good inside. So I decided, okay, let's work something out. And eventually, that's when I moved on to be the assistant to the used car manager. And then when COVID hits, I'm let go, immediately. So it's things like that where you realize, wow, none of us really matter when it comes down to the dollar signs to these owners.
We're pretty much like an investment for them. Yeah. So for me, something that I've kind of learned and that I put into the idea of is management. I feel like at my job, a lot of my coworkers could agree to me that our management sometimes need a little bit of work, and I think that goes for
almost everybody.
Everyone
knows what bad management is like.
Oh yeah, 100% sure. And it kind of sucks when management's not on your side and they kind of don't listen to you. You kind of really get frustrated when something's going on and all you want to talk to is someone that will take your side, will understand the struggle and kind of help you through as an employee, right? And then you get backstabbed and you're like, wait, never mind. That's not how it's really like. And I think it kind of sucks because mostly when it comes to someone that's like me, that kind of started working a little bit later, officially working, I guess you could say, a little later, learning the whole entire work atmosphere, having to figure out what it is like to even have a job. I remember asking Muhammad or telling him stories about this and that, and it's it wasn't normal, me working in kind of basically healthcare in a way. It was just insane because there were times where I would have panic attacks on panic attacks and anxiety attacks on anxiety attacks because it was just so overwhelming. It's
overwhelming for
Mostly
sure.
when you don't have someone that you feel you can talk to that can hold you down and be like, hey, I got you, don't worry.
Yeah.
Mostly if you have a customer that's yelling at you for no reason.
Yeah.
And then your manager or your supervisor or whatever doesn't support you, instead goes in favor of that customer.
Look stupid in front of them.
That is extremely irritating.
You know what else hurts is when one of your coworkers that you spent time with as a coworker and they move on.
Oh my god, yes.
They move on up to management.
Oh.
And you're like, you've betrayed me. You've joined the dark side.
See, the thing is that I feel at my job, a lot of my employees, my coworkers, they have moved up, and then it feels our friendship is still the same, but my respect for them has grown increasingly because they have a new position, and I kind of have to understand that they're doing it for themselves and the better of the money, right? It kind of stings a little bit, but at the same time, it's just kind of
yeah, don't get me wrong, the relationship for the most part stays the same. It's just that you can kind of tell that they're in the upper level management's pocket a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, and that they're kind of more looking out for the company. Whereas when you guys were on equal ground as equal coworkers,
Yeah.
none of that mattered, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, what do you see? I feel like a lot of people have issues, like the typical American worker have issues with not being paid their worth, or constantly having to switch jobs because I see a lot now this new trend of if you leave your company every 2 years, you can eventually keep raising your salary, and keep raising your skill set. And where before we were taught to stick as long as you can with each company, try to stay as long as you possibly can with where you work. What do you think about that?
See, the thing is for me, because I did start work a little bit later on, I kind of really didn't understand the whole thing like at first.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like now that I've kind of been 2 years into my job, I kind of feel the same way where like I feel like sometimes mostly with the job that I have, I feel like we don't get paid enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're so overworked and we're so overwhelmed all the time and we're like pushed, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember like during COVID, we got like a $2 pay increase because everything was going so crazy during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice because of the pay increase, but I remember me and my other coworkers was like, dang, we're only worth like $2.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy all the time. And sometimes like the thing that like you're asked to do, you're just kind of like this
What?
isn't part of my job. Like this is not a
Yeah.
part of what like I assigned to do.
And not just that, like of course on like you were saying, it's almost like it comes down to respect. Like
Mm-hmm.
they respect you so little that they can go make you clean the toilets when that's not your job or something. But aside from that, like everything is so much more expensive. Like I think I saw this one study, and don't quote me on this. Like the to not be drowned in bills and live in an average 1 bedroom apartment in America, you have to make around $19 an hour, just to like survive, and the average uh, entry level minimum wage worker, I think, is less than 15, right?
Mm.
So what, $15 an hour? So like at what point are you like at least saying a livable wage? I know there's a lot of controversy about that, so I won't get too far into what's livable and what's deserved and whatnot, because I understand there's lots of perspective and lots of things that go into that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just something I like to keep in mind when I think about
Mm-hmm.
working for someone.
Mm-hmm. And like about the whole like better to keep like leaving a job every couple of years to increase your pay.
Mm-hmm.
I like really didn't think about it all that much until like I saw like a TikTok video about like this one guy saying that like he would stay at a job for like 2 years or so, like a maximum of 2 years, and then he would leave and try to find another job that increased in pay.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, he ended up getting a 6-figure job because he kept leaving his job to get a better job over time.
Right.
And genuinely, when I saw the TikTok, like I didn't even realize that like that was a thing, and I was just kind of like, oh, that actually makes kind of sense because I was raised on like sticking to a job and like slowly
definitely.
increasing in pay. But then it's also like, what if you're not happy?
Mm-hmm.
What if you're tired of the job and
Yeah.
you've done everything and you're just like your pay doesn't increase anymore?
Yeah.
What happens then?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think even like without knowing it, I was kind of just doing it subconsciously, because everywhere I stayed, in the beginning it was around 2 years, and then I'd move on. But I mean, it's kind of like a way to get back at the whole system, I think,
Mm-hmm.
to game the game, I guess, because we're constantly being played and, toyed and stuff as little pawns. So, I mean, if that's what you got to do, then do it. I mean, if it's a matter of happiness, do it for your happiness. If it's a matter of money, do it for your money.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a matter of just switching things up, absolutely switch it up. That'd be my personal take on that. The next thing I want to talk about was, if you've been job searching lately, and again, you want that livable wage with like decent accommodations, decent benefits, decent, just livable, respectable for what, you expect to have in America. You'll see so many jobs that are supposed to be entry level that require experience in that field, like a lot of experience in that field, or an absurd degree that does not match the pay that went into the cost of getting that degree. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think this is really happening a lot to fresh grads out of college. They spend all this time going to school, and then they come to get a job that they had worked so hard to be qualified for.
But they can't because they don't have the experience to do it.
Yeah. Or they don't have the degree, like the master's or like the doctorate, like stupid, like absurd, qualifications that these jobs are like. It's just absurd to me, at least. And I think it's why the state of employment for a lot of Americans, a lot of people are kind of being awoken to it and realizing that they don't have to accept this, and they're doing like the 2-year plan that we just talked about, or they're starting their own businesses, or whatever the case is. They're just not accepting these conditions.
Yeah, most definitely. And I definitely saw this with my own eyes, like working at the job that I do now, because like I work with a lot of people that are like either like a lot older than me or around my age, and the people that are older than me, like they have college degrees.
Yeah.
Like they have college degrees and they're working the same job as me.
Right.
And my job, I was trained how to do what I'm doing now. So I'm a phlebotomy tech pretty much. And that means that I stick people with needles, and I was trained at the job to how to do what I'm doing. And there's people that like have a college degree for whatever degree that they have, and they have the same job as I do.
Yeah.
Like this is their career.
You see a lot at restaurants, like when I was working at Outback, you see a lot of all over it in retail. I mean, it's
because like I feel like after you're done with college, right, and you realize that the degree that you have, you can't do much with it because you need to do more or go to school more to be able to do anything. Or if you weren't guided well in college to do like internships or like have a backup plan or just have something like sustainable, it's hard to find a job. So then people end up having jobs that someone fresh out of high school can have. And I think that's so shitty, because we're always told that, if you want to get a good job, you need to go to college.
Right.
Which, yeah, that's understandable. But it also, like, you got to be realistic about it. Like, someone that can have a 2-year degree at a community college can have the same job as someone that went to university. But the person that went to community college will probably end up having more money than the person going to the university, because they didn't have to pay as much in tuition, so they don't owe as much in loans.
And they got to get the experience because more than likely you're probably working at the same time.
Or like even sooner, like realistically you have to think about like, what do you want to do in the future? What do you want to do? And like, is a 4-year degree like obtainable to you? Like my goal, my future, I generally only need to take a 2-year program. So that doesn't require me to have to go to a 4-year school, get a ton of loans, and then have a job in my career, right? Like, I feel like that's something that's not spoken enough, and I feel like that's why so many people end up being in jobs and being employed in certain places that genuinely doesn't make them happy, but they stay because it's money.
Right. And I don't think we want to get too much further into the school topic, but one last point, like our parents and the generations before them, like the return on investment for going to college was absurd. Like it was automatic, like it was immediate. You go to college, you get a good job, you get a house, you get all this. And that return on investment is not nearly the same as it was for previous generations. So when our parents are telling us, they have great intentions, but it's just not the climate we're in right now.
Oh, yeah.
And so these same kids that are fresh out of college that are expecting a great job because, again, the qualifications that they're told they're supposed to have, and they can't get a job, I mean, it says a lot about, our state of employment. And I think all of this that we're talking about was really amplified because of COVID.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, every little crack was, like, made into a crater when COVID came around. Like... And for me, one thing I really noticed, and a lot of people, on Twitter and all that will complain about this, were that the rich still got richer during times of uncertainty, panic, pain, suffering for a lot of regular people. Like millions of people died because of COVID, and here's Jeff Bezos almost doubling his net worth because of Amazon, and same with Elon Musk and Bill Gates and you name them. Like everyone who already had a certain amount of money made more money. I think that goes a lot to say about how employers view, employment, because the people working for Jeff Bezos aren't making the same amount that he is. Not that they should. I don't want to get misunderstood here. But the people that are working for Jeff Bezos probably were struggling, like a lot of people were, with unemployment and struggling with trying to survive
Mm-hmm.
while these guys are getting richer.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I said, I mean, our employers kind of have the same kind of mindset, I feel, in that everything is just dollar signs, and the rest of us don't matter.
You're right, and I feel like another thing that I've kind of noticed during the whole COVID thing that was pretty obvious, I feel like, before COVID, but no one genuinely believed until they saw it, was that it's possible for people to work or go to school from home.
Definitely.
And having all the necessary tools paid for and given to them to be able to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
I.e., like, I'll do school, for example. Even though we're talking about employment, I feel like I can start with school, where students were provided, like, electronics to be able to do online school. And yes, I totally understand the whole, like, some kids don't have internet, aren't accessible to that, and I think, honestly, I feel like the school system could have done a lot better on helping kids that are in need to be able to successfully be a student instead of punishing those kids for not being able to have what they need to have.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different story. But it's also with work. Like, there's a lot of people out there that have kids at home that have a busy schedule and they can't be in the office. It shows that, like, they don't need to be in the office to do their job. Like, they can literally work from home, do the same thing, do what they need to do, and still be a parent.
Yeah.
And still do what they need to do.
And it's a win-win for both, because the company saves money not having to have a place for these people to work in and pay for utilities and electronics and the light bills and rent and all that.
Right. And obviously we're not talking about the kind of jobs where, like, you physically need to be there.
Yeah.
Like, i.e., like, my job. Like,
Yeah.
I have to physically be there. Like, I can't be sticking people from a computer, like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about jobs where, like, if they have the chance to be at home and still do their jobs and be at home, they can, right? Like, it shows that, like, it is possible. It's really, really possible.
Yeah.
And now I feel like now that people see that it is possible, you can't say it's not.
Yeah.
You can't be like, oh, like, I'm sorry that, like, you were, like, sick at home, so you had to put in vacation time.
Yeah.
You can't, because you couldn't work. Like, well, they can do it from home now.
And it's almost like a new standard now. Like, people, like, when they're looking for jobs, they're almost expecting that now, like, to have the opportunity to work from home and be somewhat, remote accessible. Just because, like what you were saying, not being able to show up to work one day, or, like, just in general wanting the freedom to be able to work from home.
Right. And I think with all of that too, it also showed, like, how much the government can actually help everyday people.
Yeah.
Like, it really does. It, like, you can't say that the government can't do this, can't do that, it can't provide this and that. It literally showed that they could.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it was in a state of, like, emergency, but I also feel like if we were able to grow as an environment, as an economy, and just thrive on putting investment on everyday people, we would grow so much better and so much more.
Yeah.
But we're not going to go into politics on that. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, if you look at, like, the unemployment checks, like, people were talking about how they're getting much more than what they were making at their regular jobs.
Oh my god, yes, I was so upset.
And I mean, to the people that were working and, like, were the essential workers, I mean, I was one of them for a time, but for the most part, I was unemployed during the COVID period because it made more sense to be unemployed. Like, why would I go and risk myself to work at a job I'm going to get paid less for? when I can have the safety of home, and people can say you're being lazy or you're being taken advantage of. Whatever. I mean, the government takes advantage of me every day. I'll take my check. Thank you very much.
No, but it's for real though. Like being an essential worker myself, like it was pretty upsetting that someone that was being that was unemployment was getting paid more than I was, risking my life every day to go to work and having to be in an environment where I had to work every single day and barely getting paid, and that my life risking myself of COVID was only worth $2.
And again, I don't think it is to say that like the people on unemployment don't deserve it or whatever. I think
no, definitely not.
The people that were working deserved more. Like,
a little bit more. Like, come on.
Like, I mean, it's just common sense. Like, why would you not invest in your people? It helps everybody.
Mostly like people that worked in the grocery stores and having to deal with all of that every day. Like, I still feel really bad for people that worked in the grocery stores and were considered essential workers having to go to work every day. Mostly at the beginning of COVID.
Oh my
Dear
God,
my Lord.
Like, raided.
I can't.
All the Karens at
like,
once.
They deserved so much more than what they're being dealt with.
And I mean, the hospital workers and nurses. Good Lord. Remember in the beginning where they had to wear like trash bags because they didn't have enough supplies to wear regular coats and gloves and all that.
For a fact, though, I feel like we should take this moment to say thank you to all of them because you guys definitely did a lot and it definitely helped us out. And people may not have appreciated y'all, but we definitely
absolutely. Thank you for your service, everybody.
And so then...
And I think just to jump off of that, like what we were saying before about how people are being more awoken to the way they're being mistreated, especially when you look overseas to other countries where, America brags about being number one all the time, but the people in other countries are happier with their work environment, are happier with their work conditions, are happier with their work-to-life balance and their freedom to be able to choose and, all that.
It's the fact that it's crazy that other countries have sick days where it's not set days. It's just whenever they're sick, they go home.
Yeah, and like everyone else, some people being on unemployment checks, realizing that like the government has been holding back on them for so long when they could have been helping, and I mean you saw like the stock market, the real estate market, everything went up when you give people more money. Like it makes perfect sense, and that's part of the reason why, like I was saying, the rich got richer with Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all them. Sure, but if it's at the price of everyone else also getting richer and more stable financially, who cares? Like, I don't understand why people are so obsessed over like this whole being over budget and we're constantly in debt and all that. It's an investment. You can't think of it solely as a price. You got to think about value. What are you getting by slightly going in debt compared to what you're receiving, and people buying more stuff, people investing more, people being smarter with their money. Like, you get so much more out of it. And so nowadays people are so unwilling to accept these shitty conditions that a lot of workplaces were offering before, that people were accepting before, because they didn't have a choice. And now that people saw that there's other options and that they deserve better, these places that were once thriving with workers coming in and out, having huge turnarounds, people get fired or leave and come back and get new hires, are struggling now.
Yeah, and like to kind of just a little bit like bite off of what you were saying, like I definitely agree with all that, but it's also you have to understand that, like, I feel like sometimes like people don't understand how money generally works. Yeah. People don't know how to financially keep themselves stable. They're taught a certain way for so long that like you have to save, pay bills, and that some people are so okay with living the bill by check kind of lifestyle that like I just feel like the whole idea of talking about money is considered a taboo here, right? And not enough people talk about money, not enough people talk about investing money and how to handle your money, right? And honestly, we can have a whole podcast about that because I really want us to. Like, it's something that we're both kind of just really doing our own research because we both want to be like financially free and independent and be able not to work for anyone anymore and be able to do what we want to do in our life, right? And not live check by check. And but that's kind of what I would like to say off of what you were saying, because I feel like not enough people are knowledgeable about that, right? And so I feel like that's something that needs to be taught more, but I feel like it's not, because it's better to not teach people about what can make them more successful than it is to just know what you know, hear what you hear, live how you live by standards. And some people are just uncomfortable with just stepping out of what is normal.
Yeah, how many times, I guess I can't ask you this question, but how many times have you guys been hired at a job and they tell you, don't talk about how much I'm paying you to your coworkers? I've heard that so many times, and it's like, I get it, like, you don't want to cause like anybody to be upset.
But would you think that you would want to pay all your employees the same, like equal? I'm just saying, like, there's a difference between like having different positions in a job and getting paid more. That understood. But like, if we have the same position and one person's getting paid more, because I mean, that's a little shady. I'm just saying, personal opinion.
Yeah, and I'm not saying necessarily like everyone should spill the beans and be like, what are you getting paid? What are you getting paid? But like, it just kind of shows how a lot of employers just don't have very good intentions, and you know, they want to keep things like under wraps just to, you know, maybe underpay some people and overpay someone to make it, you know, work out. But you know, that's just my thought on that.
And he also said that he can't ask me because I actually can't talk about my job in detail. I can't talk about my job in detail. Sorry.
I don't know. I wasn't sure if your job ever told you not to talk about.
Oh no, they did.
Paid. They did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So there's that.
All right. What else is another goal for us that we would want in the future? I would say, if I have my own business, which by the way I do, I have something like in the future that I really want. Like, I want to own my own boba shop. Yes, I'm an Asian girl that wants to own a boba shop. Don't leave me alone. But if I were to have employees, I would be a better manager, a manager that I would want right?
Yeah.
But knowing me, I'm a very bossy bitch when I need to be. Like, if I need to get work done, I'm a very bossy bitch.
Absolutely.
But I don't know.
She's mean.
I am not mean.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
You made me cry 3 times this week. I haven't cried that many times in my entire life. I'm just kidding. Shit. I'm exaggerating. It's only been twice. Anyways, as a business owner, you know, you look forward to the future a lot. And eventually when I get to the point of having people, you know, on payroll and working with me, you know, like she was saying, I just want to be the kind of manager that I always wanted, and, you know, not be the type of person that I didn't want that I had before. And I mean, just overall, you know, with this podcast and with the platforms we eventually grow, we just want to inspire people to, you know, want to be more, not settle for this typical life that we're, you know, expected to accept. Not just join the status quo.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's kind of a good way of saying, like, why we started this podcast, because I feel like we don't actually talk about that enough, is that, like, we generally want to inspire people to live a different lifestyle, to push for your goals and push for your dreams, and to not work for money, but make money work for you. And I think that's a really important thing that a lot of people need to understand, is that...
You do listen to me.
I do. that you really shouldn't be on your knees and your feet living check by check every day. You should learn how to figure out your life and think differently and outside the box, and really live for yourself.
So you don't have to struggle like all of your friends and all of your family members.
Like, you don't have to live the normal basic life that everybody lives. And honestly, if you're okay with that, then cool, but know that there are options out there. And it's not easy, but
pick your hard.
Otherwise
it's gonna be hard. Pick your hard.
Exactly. Pick your poison. You're gonna die eventually, so pick your poison. Do what you want, right? This life is short. Don't live it like a typical person. But that is it for today. I hope you guys really enjoy our podcast today. So let us know what you guys think, and that shall be all. So goodbye.
Good night.
Farewell. Yours truly.
Hey y'all, Mohammed checking in with you here. Thank you so much for watching the first audio podcast. We really hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to stay tuned for the visual podcast this Saturday. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share, as it is the only way we can grow. Much love, Yours truly.